The episode begins with a newsreader reporting that although it has been 18 months since PDS patients were integrated into society, an Undead Liberation Army group has been discovered trying to attack a mall. In the next scene, we see Ken Burton strolling alongside his nephew as they pass a pair of PDS sufferers whom his nephew refers to as rotters. Ken corrects him and asks him to treat them as normal humans. Later, the PDS patients board the train at the same time as Ken, and when the doors close, they rise up and make speeches. Following that, each player uses Blue Oblivion, a special kind of drug, and begins attacking the people on the train, probably killing everyone on board. At Kieren's home, his parents are watching the news about Victus, an anti-PDS sufferer party that opposes the movements of the Undead Liberation Army. Meanwhile, upstairs, Jem and Kieren discuss a postcard that Amy has sent for Kieren, stating that she has been chosen for a mission. When Kieren asks Jem if she has made friends at school she recently joined, she replies uncomfortably that she has. After this, Jem suggests Kieren go to Paris and begin his new life, and surprisingly, he also agrees to it. In the following scene, Kieren walks out of a clinic and meets Shirley. To their dismay, one of Shirley's coworkers tells them that Ken is dead. At the same time, a rabid PDS sufferer tries to attack Kieren, but Gary manages to take control of his leash in time. He then places the PDS patient in the cage and gets a reward of £80. Even though there has been a weapons restriction, Kieren notices that the person Gary brought in was shot in the leg, causing Gary's commission to decrease to £40. Next, since no one in the community goes to church anymore, Vicar Audie is seen speaking to a maximum of 3 people. As Vicar is giving a speech, Maxine Martin enters the church and introduces herself as the new MP for Wharton. After this, Vicar Audie gives Maxine an office to use, not before ordering Philip to clean it up for her. At school, Jem seems anxious and is having her lunch alone. On the other hand, Henry Lonsdale, who has a crush on Jem, compliments her beauty and intends to give her the bracelet that he custom made with Jem's name on it. In the following scene, when Kieren gets home, he does some research on Maxine Martin and then goes upstairs to circle a PDS-friendly location in a Paris tourist book. The following day, Kieren goes to Rick's grave and starts talking to him. He also puts a single white flower among the others, indicating that the two are in love. Suddenly, Amy arrives there and embraces Kieren. Following this, the two begin discussing Kieren's plans to leave Wharton for Paris. Amy also reveals to Kieren that she is engaged now, but doesn't tell him with whom. While returning home, Kieren stops as they walk by the Macy family, probably thinking about Rick. Later, while Kieren is having dinner with his family, Steve asks Kieren why Amy is back and assumes that she's there to kill them, referring to the Ula with which she spent time. Hearing this, the rest of the family members scold Steve for his comment. After this, when Steve starts questioning Kieren about his state when he rose from the grave, Jem saves Kieren by knocking a glass over to distract her parents. Afterward, Kieren feels awkward and goes to the bathroom to remove his contact lenses and concealer mousse. However, he fails to look at himself in the mirror and walks away. The scene then shifts to Sandra's house, who is hosting Maxine for her stay at Wharton. Maxine is watching television with Sandra, her husband, and her mother-in-law, but seems a little distressed. Later, when Sandra goes out to search for her missing cat, she is suddenly attacked by a ferocious PDS sufferer. As the HVF has been banned by the authorities, Maxine kills the rabid herself with a drill and saves Sandra. The following day, Vicar Audie goes to the Wharton cemetery to place some flowers he has collected from his front garden. Maxine is also there, looking at the graves and listing out names. When she notices Kieren's grave, she adds it to a list of other people who have PDS. As Vicar watches the list, he seems to realize that Maxine is after something. During the day, Kieren also visits his grave, only to find a man sitting on it. Right then, Amy also arrives there and introduces the man as Simon, a member of the Undead Liberation Army. Due to their involvement in attacks on the living, including the murder of Ken Burton, his neighbor, on the tram, Kieren is somewhat hostile. Kieren maintains his skepticism despite Amy's assertion that it was not the Ula. Despite Kieren's reluctance to get involved, he asserts that the Ula is in place to safeguard PDS sufferers. After that, Kieren informs them that they shouldn't be out without the contacts and Moose, to which Simon simply responds that Kieren is fleeing from reality and ought to be himself. In the parish council meeting, they discuss the need to fix a fence, Maxine interrupting to tell them about the rabid man that attacked Sandra the night before. She explains she killed the rabid, to the surprise of the council. The scene then switches to the bar where Kieren works and we can see Gary and some other HVF individuals boisterously shouting about their ban. Gary also mentions that once a second rising happens they'd be required again. Meanwhile, Jem and Sue are at the same supermarket where Jem saw Kieren devouring Lisa. At the shop, Jem and Sue bump into Sylvia Lonsdale, who inquires as to whether Kieren is gifted. She says so because her son Henry has been behaving weirdly after his return from the PDS facility. In the meantime, Vicar Audie is looking through a book as he probably discovers something about Maxine. Right then, the doorbell rings and Maxine shows up. The two then discuss that with their joint power they can bring the town back from the edge. Maxine appears to be confused when Vicar tells her that the end is near. On the other hand, Amy and Simon also arrive at the bar and Gary can be seen provoking them. Seeing this, Kieren asks Gary to go out of the bar, but Gary instead begins insulting Kieren. Kieren then pushes Gary, making him enraged and come after him. Luckily, Simon intervenes and saves Kieren. Pearl, the bar owner, then draws a revolver and commands Simon to leave Gary and everyone else to remain still. Afraid, Simon releases Gary as Kieren approaches Pearl and slams the bar's keys down in front of her before leaving. In the following scene, Vicar takes Maxine to show her a bunker that he built to keep himself safe during the second rising. Vicar goes on to state that he is aware of Maxine's true identity and motivation for being there, claiming that if the first risen are eliminated, they will both achieve their goals. Listening to this, Maxine states that he is wrong about her intentions. Suddenly, Vicar grabs Maxine fiercely and seems to be having a heart attack. Maxine then rushes inside to call for help but stops after seeing a list of parish records. She then grabs the record and flees, leaving Vicar to suffer and die. At Kieren's, we see him unlocking a box and taking out his passport before packing his bag to leave. Moments later, Maxine is back at Sandra's house and begins looking at the documents she brought from Vicar's office. She then focuses on Kieren and places his picture on the wall of PDS patients in the community. In the following scene, Jem is at the school, hallucinating during an exam, and notices her pen leaking blood as she writes. She panics and stands up, only to discover that the teacher and the other students have suffered from PDS. As Jem pulls out her rifle, she realizes she is out of ammunition and retreats as the PDS patients rush all around her. As Jem comes downstairs, she finds the family dressed and enjoying a breakfast with a French theme to bid Kieren farewell before he departs for France. Despite Jem asking him to stay, Kieren departs after saying goodbye and hurries to the train station. Later, when Kieren arrives at the train station, he finds Amy waiting for him there. She asks him not to go and be with her, but Kieren ignores her words and attempts to purchase a ticket. Sadly, the ticketing officer refuses to give him a ticket after knowing that he is a PDS patient. Having no other option than to wait for the train to arrive, Kieren sits down with Amy at the railway and begins chatting with her. Sometime later, Phillips arrives there, and when Kieren requests him to arrange a ticket for him, he tells them that he can't leave and needs to attend a meeting with Maxine and the other PDS patients. The scene then shifts to school, where Jem is sitting in her classroom, listening to the teacher discussing the rising. At the same time, her classmate, Henry, brings up the HVF and mentions that Jem was previously a member of it. Listening to this, the teacher asks Jem to get up and respond to questions from the class, and she unwillingly stands up to explain. On the other hand, after all the PDS patients arrive at the meeting, including Kieren and Amy, Philip plays a videotape explaining the PDS Give Back scheme. In the video, it is said that all PDS patients must volunteer to assist communities to recover after they had been harmed in the past because of them. It is also mentioned that the PDS sufferers will be given a special passport by the UK government if they happily participate in the scheme. After watching the video, Kieren confronts Maxine, the new MP of the town, about the discrimination of the scheme. Maxine responds to Kieren's question by explaining that PDS patients cannot reapply for passports until they have participated in the program and been evaluated for such applications as passports. Later, she then inquires as to what time Kieren rose from his grave. Kieren replies that he has no idea and leaves, only to leave Maxine to mark Kieren's paperwork as completed. After the class is over, Jem's classmates, Hillary, Charlotte, and Kieren come up to Jem and introduce themselves before inviting her to join them for lunch. Jem also happily accepts their request and walks to the cafeteria. Meanwhile, Kieren returns home, giving his parents a great surprise. At the cafeteria, after getting humiliated by Charlotte for approaching Jem, Henry goes back to his table, where his friend Rob tells him that he has the Blue Oblivion and plans to frighten the students. At Kieren's home, Steve checks about the new PDS Give Back scheme certifications required for Kieren's passport on the computer, and informs Kieren that it will take him a minimum of 6 months to get the certifications. He also states that after Kieren submits an application, a panel of judges must review his case and give him the passport. At the same time, the doorbell rings, and Jem leaves to meet Charlotte outside and go somewhere. Next, when expressing her concern for Kieren to Simon, Amy wonders what the Undead Prophet has advised doing once the PDS patients of Rorton have gathered. He replies that the Prophet has just told them to go to the place where they first rose. After this, Simonal gives Amy a neurotriptyline injection, which causes Amy to start shaking around rapidly. Later, she manages to recover and goes to the bathroom, but her hand continues to shake. The scene then shifts to Jem and Charlotte, conversing about the time of the rising. Charlotte asks whether Jem has ever been hesitant, to which Jem responds that she hasn't, despite recalling the time she discovered Kieren at the supermarket. Right then, Kieren knocks on Jem's door unexpectedly to offer her his extra concealer mousse, which she uses as a foundation. In front of Charlotte, she refuses to use it and orders Kieren to leave. Seeing her PDS sufferer brother, Charlotte gets surprised and tells Jem that she is lucky to have him back. The following morning, Kieren wakes up and prepares to depart to take part in the PDS Give Back scheme. Meanwhile, we see Charlotte preparing breakfast at home for her mother. After serving breakfast to her silent and distraught mother, Charlotte leaves, but not before removing a picture from its frame. Next, Simon arrives late at the place where PDS patients are required to build a fence at the border of Rorton. Simon then joins hands with Kieren and begins working with him. During this time, he notices scars on Kieren's arms, indicating that he had committed suicide. Kieren immediately pulls up his sleeve, but Simon has already seen it, and to comfort Kieren, shares his story of drug overdose and depression. Meanwhile, at school, Rob snorts the blue oblivion pill with an aim to prank his classmates and walks up to the corridor as an undead. The whole school panics and Charlotte hands over a machete to Jem, asking her to attack the rotter as she did during the first rising. Afraid, Jem manages to go out of the classroom, but cannot launch an attack on Rob. Instead, she pees in her pants and asks her classmates to open the door. Luckily, at the same time, Rob recovers and comes back to normal. Charlotte, however, belittles Jem and reveals that Jem was the one who killed her father in the supermarket during the rising. Later at night, hesitantly, Kieren attends Simon's undead party and meets with Amy. Amy welcomes him inside and takes him to Simon. While talking in private, Simon clarifies to Kieren that he doesn't have a romantic relationship with Amy since he understands she only wants to be loved and accepted. On the other hand, sad Jem is picked up by Gary in his jeep and taken to the forest for patrolling. During this time, Gary expresses his respect towards Jem for saving him during a rabid PDS sufferer encounter, and titles her a brave soldier. Right then, the two hear some noise coming from the woods and assume that it's Undead. Unbeknownst to them, it's Henry, who has come to the forest to relieve himself. After following the sound for a while, Amy notices someone afar and shoots. To her dismay, when she approaches the body, it is revealed that the one she shot is none other than Henry, who has now died. At home, Haley joins Freddie Preston, her ex-husband, as he watches rewinds of their wedding film. When the two talk about their wedding, Haley's new lover, Amir, asks her to get back to bed. On the other hand, despite Jem wanting to give herself into the authorities for killing Henry, Gary does not let her do so and drops her home. Soon later, Kieren returns home from the party in a cheerful mood and grabs his coat from a bush to put it on before confronting Jem, sitting at the door. Jem then goes straight to her room and places the pistol in her drawer that she used to murder Henry Lonsdale. The following morning, Maxine doesn't open the door when Sandra approaches her after making a cup of tea for her. Sandra decides to watch Maxine through the keyhole, leaving the tea in front of the door since she is interested in what she is doing. To her surprise, she sees Maxine laughing and chattering to herself inside, causing her to get worried and walk away. Meanwhile at home, while leaving for school, a distraught and anxious Jem unexpectedly tells her family that she loves them and departs for school. After Jem leaves, Amy shows up and gets ready to accompany Kieren to work, the PDS Give Back scheme. While Kieren is getting ready, Amy inquires about Simon, and if he mentioned her during their private talk the previous night. Despite Simon not telling anything interesting about Amy, he claims that Simon did, with the aim to make her happy. After leaving her room, Maxine sits down at a table with several pieces of paperwork and a photo of a bottle of blue oblivion. Maxine hastily tucks this away once Sandra spots it, and then asks Sandra what she recalls about the night of the rising. At the same time, the doorbell rings and it is none other than Jem, who has been hit by the guilt of killing Henry. Next, Freddie attempts to convince Haley to stay with him after inviting her to a garage. To his dismay, Haley refuses to stay with him, preferring her life with Amir. Following this, Freddie realizes that he hasn't taken his medicine, and after a bit of struggle, turns into a zombie. Not willing to hurt Haley, he gives her a hammer and asks her to hit him in the head. However, Haley cannot do so and screams for help. To her good luck, Amir arrives there in time and asks for help from the local people to open the jammed door of the garage. Right then, Gary and Kieren arrive there and open the garage door with the help of Gary's truck. Before Gary shoots Freddie, Kieren is able to persuade Freddie to stay in place long enough for him to inject the medication. Soon after, Gary ties him up and transports him back to Norfolk Treatment Center in the back of a truck. In the last scene, Kieren knocks on Simon's door after rescuing Freddie, and seems like he is really affected by the incident. Seeing him, Simon gets surprised, and when he asks Kieren what's wrong, he receives a passionate kiss rather than a reply. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you.